Mm-hmm.
So again, I just want to take this time on behalf of the platform, because everyone is part of this platform, to present everyone who is here. We thank God we're here together, and I will just briefly tell us who you will be listening to, and when time comes, a proper introduction will be made as far as our panelists or our speakers are concerned. But again, we'll be having Dr. Nick Ngwanyam from Cameroon. We'll be having Professor Njilah as well, Isaac from Cameroon. We will be having Dr. Nchari Luanga. You're welcome, from Europe. I guess it's from either Holland, or he will tell us more about that. Then, as far as the anchor crew is concerned, we already have Tashi Tawe Nelson. We have Mangiri Dr. Yengi Lilian. Time for me, Edison Gay is one of the anchor persons. And then we also have Madame Comfort from the UK. She just greeted us indirectly a couple of minutes ago. We have Madame Laura Sunjo, who is the co-host. We have my little humble self, Kilatamfu, from Canada. We have resource persons as well on this platform who will be presenting the preludes to us, notably Madame Tanya Mbianyo UK from Yaoundé, and Mr. Nganji Edwin Jeba from Canada. Again, I want to just present some of our very prominent promoters of music and culture, whom we will have the opportunity to see and to listen to them speak. Notably, Miss Prince Wanja Walters, the ambassador of Donga Mantum Artists, who will get to know him in the course of the conference. We will also have some of our artists who have thrilled the Mbum community, notably Tandap Elvin Gok, known as Divine Favor, and we will equally have Mange Justice Field, whom everyone loves the music. He's called Mukula, MKL. And again, I don't forget all our guests and august participants who are on board. I see them for me. Congratulations, Dr. Richard Ndi, who is right there and has been very instrumental. I cannot call all the names from the start, but I think that I'll leave the floor to Laura to introduce the main speakers. Sorry, the presenters of the prelude. Laura, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. And it is an honor for me to be here. I am looking to present one of our speakers today, who is Mr. Njeba Nganji. He's resident here in Canada. He's an expert in environmental sciences. He's currently the National Sales Manager for DHL Express Canada Corporate Office. So, Mr. Njeba, we are very honored to have you here with us. And if you would like to come off mute and just give us a quick word, that would be great.
Thank you. So I appreciate that, Laura, for the introduction, the warm introduction. And again, I had said here earlier that it's always a privilege to come on this platform, to be able to rub shoulders with people of very high esteem. And I had said before, Professor Njilah, he had taught me geology, and the part of geology was economic geology. While I was at the University of Chang, he was a visiting lecturer from Yaoundé. So apart from just, just teaching the geology, we had time where we sat together, and I would get some fatherly advice as well, regarding education and my future. So I really, really appreciate, reconnecting on this platform. And it's a lot of other people are here, right? That I would have loved to say particular words of appreciation to each of you, but to all of you, I am so honored and humbled to be, amongst you. I'm not sure if you wanted me to delve into the topic, or that was enough for like an introductory statement. Then I would wait. Is it okay to go ahead or to?
No, that we just wanted a prelude, just letting us know what to expect as we go on the conversation.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also on our panel today, I would like to introduce Mrs. Nchari Luanga. She's a former technical advisor to the Minister of Economy and Planning, MINEPAT. For anyone who doesn't know, this is a government agency in charge of public investment in different sectors of national life, including agriculture. So Madam Nchari also is an agribusiness promoter, and which is very relevant to the subject of today. So Madam Nchari, we are honored to have you here. If you'd like to come off and just come off mute and give us a quick prelude, that would be great.
You're muted.
I'm muted.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, okay. Please, can you hear me?
Right,
yes, we hear you now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here again. It's always a pleasure. Some of us really look forward to being a part of this platform, to listen to others talk to us, sensitize us about all kinds of issues that are related to our country. I call it country in the restricted sense of it. Call it in our Mbum land. I am very particular about what goes on up there. I left the place about more than 60 years ago, but my heart is there. So I'm very happy and I feel honored and humbled when I'm asked to speak. More often than not, I just listen. But if I have a chance to say one or two things in this learning process, I just want to thank the organizers for giving me that chance. Now, as concerns the topic of today, when it came onto the platform, if it's okay that I express my feelings because I just have them jumping all over the place in my mind. As a prelude, I would like to express myself and how I felt when I got to see the topic. I remember that back home, where we were all born in Mbum land, the habit was for women to go to the farm and then they till the farm and they get the crops and they sell the crops. And we jokingly heard, that was very late ago, more than 60 years ago, that the women would even give the men their tax money. Now, that was the myth at the time. When this topic came up, my first impression was, is that still what is going on in Mbum land? So the first question I asked myself, and that I will be waiting to listen very carefully to these very eminent speakers tell us, is what goes on in Mbum land now as concerns agriculture? Is it still just the women? Have the men come on board? So much so that we can now talk about complementarity in such a way that we see how each person brings something on board, so that when these eminent scholars and academicians and practitioners in their areas are telling us about maybe the value chain, we will be able to close our eyes and visualize what goes on the ground. So when Nchari, that I know very well, Luanga, hi Luanga, just happy to have you here, will be telling us about the reality of climate change on agriculture. I will close my eyes, like I think many of us would do, and visualize the impact of climate change at home and how that can be turned into something positive so that it improves on the lives of our people. It's just to tell you, I have all of these questions in my mind that as a prelude I'm putting out there to the speakers. Tell us concretely, use some of the names of some of the villages, use some of the crops that...
Right, probably frozen. Yeah. Right, at this time, Yeah, she should be, Madam Tanya should be frozen, maybe for one reason or the other, as much as we continue. All right, so thank you, Madam Tanya. All right, so what we're going to do now with these preludes, we will get into introducing our main speakers, and then from there, we will hand the microphone to Comfort and to Mangiri to continue with the uncle. So basically, who are these speakers? I would like to start with someone whom I had actually known not very closely, but I've heard about him so much. I guess like every Mbum person, he's called Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. I don't know what to say about Dr. Ngwanyam, but what I know is that he's the founder and CEO of St. Louis University Medical Science in Cameroon. I heard that part of the university in Yaoundé, in Douala, and in Bamenda as well. Cut the long story short, Dr. Ngwanyam, he may be surprised to know how I came about this information. I'd always wished to become either a medical doctor, a pilot, or an agriculturalist. That is the truth. The source, please, doctor, don't ask. And he's on this panel within the ambit of the agriculturalists. Dr. Ngwanyam is very much attached to social works, as far as I know, development and the concern for the community and people, you know, is like part of him. He strongly believes in the respect of humanity. He strongly believes in social justice and the support of the youth and what I will term very sound education. That's one of the things I can retain from what I know about Dr. Ngwanyam. Maybe, and so many people know him from different perspectives. I wouldn't talk about his profession and career because, frankly speaking, it's going to take us 2 hours. Professor Njilah, when I just asked someone in Cameroon, do you know Prof. Njilah? They told me, please don't try to describe Prof. Njilah because you will be subtracting all the qualities that are endowed in him. However, the little I know is that Professor Njilah is a professor of geology in the University of Yaoundé, and he's published several primary environmental science-related books and manuals. Another thing I know about him is that he's been the Deputy Secretary General of the Geological Society of Africa. Professor Njilah has also been the president and coordinator of the Cameroon Ecological Society. And to speak the least, he's a board member of Union Farms of Africa. Please, if you allow me continue, just like it was with Dr. Ngwanyam, we will stay the night here. Dr. Luanga Nchari, whom we'll be listening to as well, holds a PhD in chemical engineering and analytical science from Manchester University in the United Kingdom. Dr. Luanga brings along at least 20 years of experience in the industry, including food. Oh, that sounds better, right? Food, this is what we're talking about. Pharma and petroleum. Mangiri, Comfort, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Peter. I call him Brother Peter because since we're in this phase of introductions, I knew him when I was still a secondary school kid when I used to visit Boya, and he was this bilingual Mbum person that was in GBHS Moleko, but in the French-speaking section. So I was always confounded that how can a child from Binka be more fluent in French than English, and is actually in the bilingual section of GBHS Moleko. But anyway, that's another story. So it's always an honor for me to be on this forum because he invited me. I have moderated a couple of the previous sessions. And for today, there are people here that I would have really loved to moderate, like Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. I've been on several fora with him. We have never exchanged any communications directly. You've heard me refer to Professor Njilah as Ba Njilah because he was my Ba when we were at Leeds University together. He was doing his PhD. So he was Ba Njilah to me. And Dr. Nchari, I have known of him as well via his aunt, who was married to my uncle, my cousin. So I'm absolutely related to everybody on this forum. And maybe because of that, I wanted to let Comfort Kila lead this moderation for today. And another little anecdote is that when I was at Honorable Awudu's wakekeeping in Dallas almost a year ago, a young lady came to me and said, "Mom, it is so nice to finally meet you in person." And I said, "Thank you so much. It's great to meet you as well." And I said, "But excuse me, who are you?" And he said, "Are you not Madame Confrontilla?" I said, "No." And it was funny because she said she could swear that we look so much alike. And maybe looking at our headshots on the screen right now, one could easily see how we could be mistaken for each other. Again, it's a pleasure for me to be here today. I don't want to lead the moderation today. I might chime in a little bit to redirect or ask questions, but Ms. Kala Comfort is going to be the person to lead the moderation today. So I'll hand that over to her. Comfort, you're muted.
Yes, I was waiting to be unmuted. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mangiri. Thank you, dear family. I call this family because this is where I rightly belong. And like the saying goes, family is gold. So I just feel like I'm swimming in gold right now, especially given the type of people that I'm mingling with this afternoon is quite a joyful thing. And of course, I'm really, really honored facing Dr. Ngwanyam, facing Professor Njilah, facing even Mangiri, and every other person here is such an honor. And without much ado, I think we just go straight to our business. And any of you at all, I know that Uncle P, sorry, I'll call him Uncle P. He has already done a bit of introduction, but if you feel that there's some other things particular that we need to know about you, especially relevant to our today's discussion, we would really be happy to let you say that before you go ahead. And on this note, I would like to, of course, usher in our dear and big brother, Dr. Ngwanyam, of course, to go ahead and have the microphone. Welcome, Dr. Ngwanyam.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much again. I want to greet everybody and to say that this topic is very interesting, and you know, I can talk the whole day and I will not get tired. But as you realize, I have to talk about investing in agriculture, empowering the Mbum people, and then creating private wealth. But as I will be speaking, there's no way I can tear these issues apart, you know. So I will keep throwing things together, but because it's a package kind of a deal. And the question is, why am I so particular about these topics? Why am I so particular about the Mbum people? When we are talking the Mbum people, I guess, yes, we want to start somewhere with the Mbum people, but we have to stretch that, you know, understanding and learning and experience and exercise to the all Donga Mantung. And if why not, if Donga Mantung can lead the whole Cameroonian nation in the right direction, that would be a great thing. But just like anything, a seed must be planted, then it can grow. So realize that what we are trying to set a foundation that would be used as a prototype for helping Cameroon get out of her mess. If I'm talking about this and I'm very passionate about it, is because, you know, I have gone through a lot from my primary school days to today. I'm 67 years old today, and so I've gathered a lot. I know why we are poor. I know why we struggle. I know why we suffer. So sometimes, you know, like when I'm talking on WhatsApp or, you know, on TV, you probably just come out with some of you know, some points that people should pay attention to, but they might not understand because you didn't have a time to explain the details to them to catch up with you. And before we even get lost in details, I keep trying to cite this example, what pushed me to go the extra mile. My wife and I were driving from Bamenda to Bukambe sometime back, I don't know, I can say probably 15 years ago. And we went past Mbot and were heading to Nkambe, and we passed some farms, and there was corn on the farms. This was the corn time, and the corn was supposed to be just about ripe for harvest, the one you can harvest and roast or something like that. But as we were going through the farms, we noticed that we passed by so many farms, and you would look at a whole, chemsu, as they would say, and you will not probably come out with a bucket of corn. That means if someone came and you had to roast, some corn for him, you will not even come up with 3 cups of corn for him. And I could feel the pain. I said, why do people have to work so hard and get nothing out of it? It was so painful, really so painful. And we started to think about it, and I think that's why my wife started to provide fertilizers to the Mbop community to try to see if she could help somehow. And then, like I was saying sometime back, time forgot it, when I was in secondary school, in primary and secondary school, I used to see these pictures of farms in America, farms everywhere, and the kinds of farms in America I was seeing in America was not the kind of farms I was seeing back at home. I would see these Americans with their tractors, with hectares and hectares of corn, and then you have cattle, goats, cows, and machines and so. That was farming to me. So farming to me was not this whole and cutlass thing that we do every day. And it stayed with me. And when I was going to secondary school, like you said, I wanted to be one of 3 things: be a medical doctor, or be a pilot, or be a farmer. And in as much as I've become a medical doctor, the farming thing is in my bones, is quite ingrained in there. And I say we must do something about it because it's our livelihood. And when I read somewhere too that America, though a very rich nation, depends on agriculture. China, though a very rich nation, depends on agriculture. And so while we might be looking at the glass, and so like Rose was, Madame Bianya was saying something in her introduction, this notion that agriculture is meant for women. It's something that poisons our minds. Agriculture is meant for women. And that thing has been there for 100 years and has really killed us like nothing else. Because when you look at the other tribes, as soon as you leave Nkambe or Ndu and you cross into the resort land, and then you come down to the plain, everything changes. You see the men working as hard as the women on all the farms. But for us, we have this empty pride. The problem is empty pride. This empty pride that keeps us away from the farm. We say farming is for women and children, and then the men walk away, and you would ask yourself the question, what are the men doing with 24 hours of a day? And no one is ready to give you an answer. That is where the problem lies. How comes the women are working and the men are not working? If they say farming is for the women, the question is, yes, let's agree that the farming is for the women. So what are they bringing to the table? When you ask that question, either they insult you, or they keep quiet, or they turn around in circles and so on. So just going around, they made drinking is good. It's good to socialize, no problem. There's nothing wrong with that. But you cannot make drinking a 24-hour kind of thing. No work, you only drink. You go to the palace. I don't know what else they do. But honestly, even at my age, you ask me what our men do, I cannot tell you. That has been bothering me. Like I can't express myself on that. It's really been bothering me, and I've been asking myself the question: what exactly can we do doing their best as far as that agriculture is concerned? The question now is, why are the men not part of it? What are we going to do to convince and try to help the men to be part of it? And if we can overcome that, and then make the men join the women in this agricultural activity, then they bring their strength and everything to it, and we will have more. Once we start them going, then we can say now, we have so many months in a year. We only plant corn and we harvest, and that is it. What else are we doing with the rest of the month in the year? Can we plant corn and plant something else, which now brings onto the table the concept of second crop? So where is the problem? The problem, is with our men who refuse to work on the farms. And unfortunately, they had, when there was the coffee boom or coffee whatever, they used to hide behind the coffee and call it the men's thing, and then the corn, the women's thing. Now the coffee is gone, and they have nothing in their hands. And that is why you would have noticed that when there was this thing about the wheat, I was trying to see how I could encourage the men to take on something and own it. Be proud of it, to say the men are growing the wheat, the women are growing the corn. The men are growing the oats, the women are growing the corn. The men are growing the soya beans or whatever. But at the end of the day, you kind of bring something that they can hang on that replaces the coffee and go back to the farms. So I just hope that we can be able to educate our people to see what I'm saying and go in that direction. Take on cassava and many of all these things. And when we can make these things happen, then together, you and I, all of us here, it becomes very easy for us to put money together, buy the transformation equipment and put in Mbum and everywhere. But we cannot go up that ladder when we have not gotten the raw materials in place. Try to encourage the men to choose themselves. We are not forcing them, to see how they can enter into this agricultural thing through an angle that gives them their honor, their pride, and whatever. If they can just do that, it will be great. But that said, we can move beyond that and say, okay, we're in the modern age now, and proper agriculture is not this hoe and cutlass kind of thing. We could change the dynamics, like go into mechanical agriculture. When you say industrial agriculture, it's a bigger thing. But when you say mechanical agriculture, where we take out the painful part of working on the farm, which is actually the tilling, tilling that soil. I think that's the most painful part. Is laborious, and we need not suffer our people like that. If we can have tractors in a tractor for every two villages, or let's say about 5 tractors for every 5 or 6, 5 tractors would be okay. 5 tractors for every mayor, and you can rent that out 50,000 for a hectare or something like that, or just a few minutes to run over those farms and do what they have to do, and the women and the men just have to plant a weed or do something like that would help. So we would want to look at what is it that is pushing the men away from the agriculture. What is it that we can do to leverage this agriculture in a way that we put in very little and we get more out of it? So what are the technologies we are bringing in? What are the management tools that we are bringing in? What are the strategies that we are bringing in to make agriculture, something that is lovely? You would have noticed that when Professor Njilah takes up the agriculture and doing it himself and sending these things on WhatsApp, I'm always there to share these pictures, to everyone who cares to see, and to say, look, this is a university professor, see how he is doing it. Just so that people who are suffering from empty egos can look at it and say, if professor is doing it, I can also do it. So let's continue to encourage one another and see how we can get the mindset to change. It's more of a mindset change. Once the mindset changes, then we can go into the details of how to create private wealth. All these things become very easy. But if we don't overcome this hurdle and we do the SWOT analysis on ourselves as a community, that's how I came to that. You look at your strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, then you would see that we have some opportunities in agriculture and many other sectors. Yes, our weakness is in this mindset thing, and we need to change it. And then we see how we can leverage on technology to make our lives better. Before I give you back the microphone, let me remind all of us that when I talk, forget about the fact that I'm a medical doctor. I have traveled a lot and I have done a lot on entrepreneurship, and I'm quite experienced in many things. And I had to read my own economics and beef up, and that is really helping a lot. And to say that, to remind us that every system be it in our individual houses, be it in our businesses, whatever. Every system functions on three components: politics, economics, and development. And therefore, we need to make sure that we understand how these things work together and use them to our advantage. And you will see that for these things to properly function, we need to have proper education. And that proper education is where the country should be going to now. Because like I've said before, for 60 years, our education in Cameroon has been wrong. And if the government probably corrects this education, we'll be better off. It looks like everything has frozen. I wonder whether I'm still communicating or I was talking to myself.
No, you are communicating, Doctor.
Oh, thank you very much. So I would like to leave it there, and then probably when people have specific questions, we can probably answer. But I wanted to lay this out so that we can understand the picture. Like I said, you know, how to empower the Mbum person. We all have to look at it. Everybody has to talk about it. How to create private wealth, we can talk about it. How to push the men to work, we can talk about it. And then get a clear understanding of second crop agriculture. We all need to throw in our ideas together and make this work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ngwanyam. That was a great opening right there, and you said a lot of stuff of interest. And of course, I'm happy that you're bringing to light the fact that agriculture is beyond just the hoe and cutlass and tilling on the fields. And so, of course, mentioning the great need for mechanized farming, which is quite long overdue in our land. I'm very excited where this discussion takes us to. So guys, everybody in the house, if you have a question or a contribution to chip in, just be patient with us, jot it down, and there'll come a time for that, to give people opportunities to contribute or ask questions for clarifications. So on this note, we say thank you again, Doctor, and of course, we bring in our next great speaker in the house, who is known as, but our own big brother, Professor Njilah. Welcome, Prof.
Yeah, I want to thank you very, very much for, making me part of this wonderful discussion. In fact, it gives me great pleasure, honor, and inner satisfaction to be in a panel with my senior brother, Dr. Ngwanyam, that I respect so much, my junior brother, Dr. Nchari, and so on. I salute the two of them, and I salute everybody here. And to any other person, I say, Nchari Luanga. Mr. Chair, I quite remember when you asked me to be part of this discussion. You instructed me to be not only brief, but to tune down so that everybody can understand. So that I cannot talk about my geology to only the Jeba. So I promise that I will be down to earth so that even my mother, Francisca Mengla, when she listens to me from the grave, she will understand that my son, and they thank me for it. I'm supposed to talk on the topic soil types and the impact of climate change on agri productivity. This topic for me is really wonderful. Why? Because we need to know the soil types upon which we do our agricultural practice, how climate, has been fixing the soil on which we do the agriculture, and how climate change and climate variability have come in to spoil everything. To start with, I would like to talk about the soil types that we have in the rock types that we have. In geology, let me go back to it. We have three types of rocks: the metamorphic, sedimentary, and magmatic. It happens that in Mbum land, we have only one of these rocks, the magmatic rock. And these magmatic rocks are made up of what we call rocks from the interior of the earth, the main one being the granites. And these granites are rocks that are found in the greater part of Mbum land. I start with Mashengiri, lies, or you are born on top of granites. And granites, granitic rocks are J, and they constitute the millstone on which we should grind our corn in the past. You have them in a Sop, Ntaba, Ntamro, Ntaye, Mayo Binka, and to the east of Binka. When you go to the west, Njiningo, Indu has these rocks. You also have them in Lo, and then we have them in Wat, before you're entering into the western part of Tabiken. On top of these rocks, we have the volcanic rocks. Most of them are black here, which we call basalt, that cover the whole of Tea Estate, Ndu, Wowo, Jimkang, Bibgo, Fu, yes, Loambot, and Opambot, and part of Tufu. And you will imagine that these rocks were, the volcanic eruption that took place in the past. It took place 31 million years ago on Mount Kofu to pour out these volcanic rocks. The youngest of them, Dr. Ngwanyam, are found in Tundip. If you live in Tundip and you are going towards Taku, to the right you have a primary school. That primary school is sitting directly on top of a volcanic crater, and that is the most recent rocks, less than 1 million years only. Then these are all basalts. You have some other volcanic rocks, trachytes, from the Tala, as you are going down to Jit, right down to Teng, you have these rocks called trachytes. You also have them overlooking Tumbo, that is Muyumi Tuga. That Tuga has the trachyte and rhyolites. Then Kofu has trachyte and rhyolites too. If you go to Kofu, descending some of the cliffs there, you come across a cliff which is called Sunimbu. That is completely white from afar. Those are trachyte and rhyolite. Now, how does climate affect these rocks? Climate has been affecting the rocks since creation, in the sense that when the rocks are exposed to the surface, what happens? When these rocks are exposed to the surface, they come into contact with atmospheric conditions, temperature, water, and so on. And these ones start breaking them down into small particles. If they're not broken down into small particles to form soil, the soil will not release the juice which the plants will take in to grow. So that is how it has been happening from creation. And because of that, things have been happening normally until recently. Something has come in. And before I could continue, let me tell you that on the granite rocks that we have in Mbum land, you have crops like granite that do very well there. You have raffia palms, you have plantains, and a lot of fruit trees. On top of the black soil or the basalt, what we have grown there are Irish potatoes, beans, corn, as you also find in the lower grounds of the granites. And then recently, we have tested wheat, as Dr. Ngwanyam was saying, and it's doing very well on these cliffs. We've tested oat. Oat is doing very well. Apples are also doing very, very well on these slopes. So what is happening, as Dr. Ngwanyam was saying, our men must accompany our women in the farm and probably take this other aspect of wheat, oat, and probably apples as their own part of agriculture, because the man has always remained in the house doing what we don't know, while mama is there suffering in the farm. So what is happening? It is very, very strange to understand that despite the fact that we have all this nice soil and so on for agriculture in our area, climate has broken it down to soil so that we can plant our crops. Crops have been doing very well. But recently, something has happened. Climate is changing. Climate is varying. What is the difference between climate change that we hear every day and climate variability? I want to be very, very simplistic in my explanation. For those of us who grew in Mbum land in the early 60s, Dr. Ngwanyam will bear with me, that early in the morning in November, December, January, and February, when you got up, all the valleys were white. with frost, crystals of water. But now, when you go to the same place and stand, there is nothing, which implies that temperatures have changed and the water cannot crystallize. Still in those days, we used to do it barefooted. When you hit your foot or your toe against a rock in those days, at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, the wound might be as deep as a well, or why not as wide as a church door, but blood will not ooze out until about 10 o'clock when temperatures start rising. Go there now and hit your foot. Blood will start oozing as if you've just opened a fountain. Climate is changing. So for climate change, also say climate is changing, we must measure the climatic conditions for 30 years. When we measure for 30 years, we find the average per week, per month, and then we plot it out. When we plot it out, we realize that from 1960 to 1990, there's a small change, positive, that climate is heating up. It's all as a result of global warming. Then, it is not only that, when the climate is warming up, if you see in certain places in the Mbum land, you will realize that it is not only that climate that is warming out. Look at, I give another example, but this example is of climate variability. In the past, the 60s and the early 70s, it was very clear that the rainy season would start between the 15th and the 20th of March every year. But now things have changed. Sometimes the rains come in February. Sometimes we are lucky they will come in March. Sometimes they come in April and then in May. When this happens, this is climate variability. It is not climate change. This is measured in short terms and in localized area. It's variable. That is the difference between climate change in the simplest term and climate variability. Then the question is, all these are happening. How do these affect the peasant farmer? We are having the effects of stronger storms resulting from floods that sometimes will wipe away all our crops from the valleys. We have drought. We have water deficiency. We have heat waves and so on. Yeah, with this, it is not easy for the farmers to continue doing their work. And to add to that, we also have the disappearance of certain inadaptable plant species. And there's the introduction of new crop pests that man cannot manage. And we have the proliferation of resistant crops. That is because they're resistant, they proliferate, they grow even more. Then we have the problem of increase in farm to market losses. That is what we have as far as the effects we have on our peasant farmers. Then the question is, how do we do it? How can we change it, the situation, so that it will be positive for them? They don't suffer a lot. The first thing is that we need to diversify our farming practices. We need to undertake intercropping. We need to do crop rotation, etc., etc. We need to introduce sustainable integrated agriculture. We also need to introduce drought, flood tolerant crops, and disease-resistant crops too in the area. We need to bring out new technology. Dr. Ngwanyam was talking about, bringing tractors and so on. That is wonderful. But when we do that, we need to change our methods of agriculture. Even in the dry season, we can be able to farm. And that is when we now have to bring in irrigation. We need to think about other methods of water harvesting. We need to think about water harvesting. And we need to think too about how we can start drilling for water. So we use the dry season, so we farm throughout the year. And how do we do it again? We can continue with water conservation. How do we even conserve our water? The Mbum man does not know how to conserve water. So we must look for methods of water conservation and how we can keep on recycling even the water. And I assure you that if we do this and just stop, it will not help us. We need to develop early warning systems. So will tell us that, look, we have, the rain is coming at this time, this rain that is coming today is not really the beginning of the rainy season. It is just some sort of perturbation of climatic conditions. So we need to do that. And then we use meteorological information very seriously, because that is what will help us to know when we have to plant, when we have to harvest, and when we don't have to plant. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the time. Thank you. I don't know whether you are hearing me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Prof.
Yeah.
I could hear you there. Yes, we can hear you. And of course, thank you so much. You worked really hard to be quite simplistic to the extent that I also understood something. So that was job well done, Prof. Thank you so much. Yeah, so guys, and again, this is so much education, and I was just overwhelmed how much we've got back home in terms of soil types and all of those climate changes. And you were so well preemptive in that every question I had in mind, you answered it even before I had time to ask. So thank you so much. So without much ado, of course, let's move on to our dear brother, Dr. Luanga Nchari, speaking to us from Holland, Netherlands. Welcome, bro. Dr. Luanga. Uncle P, can you check if he's able to?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, he's right there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think it's really important that we have sessions like this. I really applaud the initiators of this idea because in the end, Africa is for us, Mbum is for us. And if you see, Chinese and Indians running to Africa, you should ask yourself the question, why? I'll take a different approach. It's typically quite tricky to explain certain things. So I thought maybe it's best I show you so that, we can connect. So I think my part is a bit different, but the most important part is what my predecessors spoke about. It's all about agriculture. This part will not happen if you don't have the right feed to process. So in Mbumland, we have a lot of corn. I think that's a lot of corn. And as you can see on the corn, you have a lot of parts that are so valuable. So my part is all about adding value. It's not only about taking the corn and eating fufu or, harvesting the corn and then selling to people. No, it's about taking the corn and understanding what the corn is and adding value. And what does that mean? That means that it's more rewarding. So that's kind of like my position in this talk. So I'll just take you through Mbumland. We have a lot of agro produce. Corn, of course, we have a lot. We have potatoes, birang, palm oil, a lot of things. But what we do now is purely, consume direct. We don't add enough value. It's happening, but it's not happening enough. And of course, for us to do that, you need to use processes, and those processes need enough feed. So that's why the first step is very important, because you need to have enough feed to feed your process. So these are examples of some of the products that we have in Mbumland. Now, it's all about fast-moving consumer goods. If you go to shops, you see a lot of things that are packaged. Where are the raw materials from? We have the raw materials, but what do? We import everything. So the whole idea is, you see Chinese and Indians flooding into Africa because they know they have the know-how. So I think it's time for us to understand how we add value, and then to go to our shops and look at things and say, oh, but we have this raw material. How did I get to this point? So fast-moving consumer good is the direction that we'd like to take. And of course, there are things here that you can easily produce locally. We have tomatoes. You can see ketchup there. We have a lot of things. So that's the whole idea about, getting a produce transformed, adding value, and then thinking about the market. There are some facts that are really important for us to understand. The main source of income in the world is through agriculture. About 2.5 billion people in the world, rely on agriculture as a source of income. In Mbum in itself, this is from research that I did, 80% of income is from farming. So what does this mean? This means that it's really, really important and the topic is very relevant. So the other things like fishing and petty trading, they are not really, 80% and more is farming. So that kind of like expresses the relevance of the topic. Another very important point why it's very important for us to add value. From 2023 up to 2030, you can see that the market value has gone from by 4 times up to $1 trillion. So this is the time for us to step in. If you just harvest corn and sell, you don't make any money. If you harvest corn, transform to char, bottle and share, then it's more rewarding. And if you see that there's a drastic increase in the market, then this is the time for us to change our mindset. We've spoken about post-harvest losses. It is huge. It's a big problem. What do we do about it? I mean, studies show that in Cameroon, it's up to 30%. So basically 30% of what you produce that is taken from your farm to market or in between is lost. And that's huge. If you think about the financial benefit, if you take that amount and convert to a hospital or maybe something that could help the community, it's huge. So these are the kind of problems that we have and we need to address. Now, what is adding value? Again, I go to corn. Adding value is that you have an original state, which is your corn, you transform it, a process, and then you get a product. So in this case, in our villages in Mbum, we have mills. The only thing you do in this case is you have a mill. But what you need to do is you need to think about the market. You need to put your product in a more valuable state. So for example, we have mills, but we don't package. If you go to shops in the US and most parts of the world, you see corn and other, cereals that are packaged, the powders. So we should do this a bit more. But most importantly is that we need to look for the market. And of course, what does this do? It gives more income in the community. It's highly rewarding. Of course, we spoke about transformation. What are the different processes that you can use? Some of these processes are not expensive. So I'm really trying to take it at very, very low investment processes. Of course, you have high investment and so on and so forth. But again, some of them include a dehydrator. One of the big reasons about spoilage, just imagine you have a tomato farm, a lot of spoilage. What you could do is that you take the tomatoes, you put on a dehydrator, it takes off all the moisture, and then you have a dry product. One of the reasons why you have a lot of spoilage is because of the water content. So the higher the water content, the higher the risk of spoilage. So what you need to do is you simply put it, dry it, and that's why things like war can last forever, because they are very, very dry. Typically, the water content, will be somewhere about less than 5%. Then on the right side, we have mills. We have a lot of mills in the village. Before we eat our bar, we always mill. So yes, we mill, but is that enough? No. There are other things that you can do post-milling to add value, and also for our own identity. There are other things like the press, oil press. We have a lot of seeds that you can press and get some oil. You package, you can brand it, put your names. Packaging machines, there are packaging machines that you can get. All you need to do is you get a piece of plastic and then you seal, you heat seal. These are not very expensive things that you can do. So it's all about, we have the raw material, we look for the market, and then we package such that it's appealing for our market. Again, there are other things that are not, far-fetched. Like bakeries. We often go and buy from bakeries. Why can't we own our own bakeries? Is it that we don't have the raw materials for bakeries? No. A bakery is simply the same oven that you have at home is basically what you have. In this case, this one is what you call a conventional kind of bakery. You simply put it in, you heat it up just like what you have at home. Of course, you can also adapt this. You can have, you can build it. People can build this, Like, for example, Kumba bread, it has a special kind of bakery because that's why it lasts for long. Things like croissant and the rest, they have a different kind of bakery. So that's why they can last for long. So again, it's all about understanding the dynamics in an attempt to get good quality things that can improve the lives of our people. It goes through education. It goes through spending time to understand. Okay, look at the case of, again, predominantly we have corn. Like I said, if you go to the States, Europe, and most parts of the world, you have packaged corn. But we, as Mbums, are linked to corn. Why don't we have our own brands out there? Is it a difficult process? I don't think so. Is it that you need a huge investment? I don't think so. The trick with this, with scaling up, is you always start small. You can start in your kitchen. Like you start to make chin-chin in your kitchen, you package and you sell. Then when you see that, okay, maybe now you do 1 kilo per hour, next time you can scale up to say, okay, I have enough money, I have a bigger market. You can scale up to maybe 100 kilos per hour. So you can see these big machines, it's nothing different from what you have in your kitchen. What is important is to understand the concept of scaling up and adding value. It is more rewarding. If you take coffee and send to overseas, they would transform the coffee, make a huge profit, and the white man will get all the bonus. Whereas that mother who has a farm in the village gets nothing. So some of us have been privileged to see this and to work with some of these people. We understand the game, and this is why I really think it's a good opportunity for us to share. Again, Sha, we have been drinking Sha for ages. We enjoy it. Have we really bottled it? We've not. I mean, even if some have, it's not fully understood. Do we really understand what happened with Sha? Can we really, why is it that you can buy Guinness, which is bottled, but I can't buy Sha that is bottled? Where are the gaps, and how do we, fill those gaps? So this is where we should aim, and it's all about also having our own brands. We have Mbum. We should have our brands in our names. If a Japanese can name Toyota, Toyota is not English, it's Japanese. So if a product is ours, we need to have our names behind our products. Again, adding value. When you think of corn, you think it's only about, frying the corn, mixing with birang, and then the other things, but there's a lot that you can do with corn. For example, from 1,000 kilos of corn, you can get about 29 kilos of oil. From that same 1,000 kilos of corn, you can get about 600 kilos of sweetener. For diabetics, some people are diabetic. You can get about 600 kilos from 100 kilos of corn. Why should you import a sweetener from Europe, whereas you have the raw material at home that you can transform and add value? You have some people that are not, in terms of gluten, they prefer gluten-free things. You can also extract that from that. And of course, alcohol. So these are some examples that you can get from corn, some derivatives that you can get from corn. Starch, you extract some starch. Starch is used widely. Starch can be used for food. Starch can be used in the textile industry. You can use for various purposes. You can get some oil, corn oil as well. All you need to do is to have a press. You just put it and you press, and that's it. You have also a kind of a sugar replacer that you can extract. So you can take the corn, you do a bit of, it's a bit complicated, but it's doable. And of course, there's an ingredient in toothpaste called sorbitol. You can also extract that from corn. So again, it's all about understanding, going to your shops, looking at what's on the shelf, and you look at the raw material at home. Why can I not also replicate this and have my product next to what comes from Europe? This is the mindset that we need. Potatoes, we have lots of potatoes. It's not just about boiling the potatoes or mashing it. It's all about consuming it as families, but also thinking about, adding a bit of value. You can make some chips, you package. Packaging is very important because it gives that value to the product. And also, you can also send a message on the packaging. It also increases the shelf life of your product. So for example, if you package a product which is very dry, you can keep it for 2 years. So these are all things that we can do. Again, it's not about spending money on very expensive equipment. You can do things at home in your kitchen, just like we do ching ching and other things. Coffee, we have coffee. We're gradually losing it. And of course, we have Arabica at home. Arabica out here is seen to be premium. So with coffee, what you do is you have certain opportunities. You can roast the coffee. So you can roast and you can grind. So at that point, you can roast and grind, and you can drink. So why not roast, grind, package, and just allow, put it on the shelf? There are some people that prefer to have instant coffee. What is instant coffee? Instant coffee means that you don't need a filter. In the latter, you need a filter because you have some insoluble solids. So in the latter, you have soluble solids that when you dissolve in water, they dissolve. And then you have insoluble solids. That's why when you roast and grind, you always need a sieve. But with instant coffee, what you do is you soak the coffee that has been roasted. Why do you roast the coffee? When you roast the coffee, it gives that flavor. The flavor that you get in your finest instant coffee is because of the roast. That's why sometimes you have mild roast, some heavy roast on the instant coffee. So to move from roast and ground to go to instant coffee, what you do is you take your roasted coffee that has been milled, you soak it, and then you extract the soluble solids. When you extract the soluble solids, you then dry it. And when you dry it, you get your instant coffee. These are things that if we think we can do it, of course, not at massive scale, but at low scale, we can do some pilot projects, to be able to do this. Oil, of course, it's just about having a press. Must you buy, oil from Europe? No. You have the raw materials. It's just a press. And of course, if you want to take off the flavor, the odor and other things, the heavy part of the oil, there are processes to do that. So again, it's not about buying the very expensive equipment. It's all about, taking a step back as a community to look at ways of extracting this and then giving this to your community at lower prices. Oil is a very important ingredient. A lot of our diets are cooked with oil. So it's really, really important that we try to drop the cost as low as possible. Tomatoes. We have a lot of tomatoes, but we import ketchup. It's simple. With tomatoes, you simply have to, you mill it, you have a paste, and then you just bottle. But what is really important is that you have to, what you call pasteurize. So pasteurize means that if you heat up the tomato and it kills a lot of the bacteria. Because if you don't kill the bacteria and you fill and seal, then what happens is that you have some spoilage of your products. So tomatoes are really, really abundant. You have a lot of spoilage, but the trick is make it to be as dry as possible. Why not make tomato powder? So you take the tomatoes, you can put in a dehydrator, what I showed before. I mean, dehydrators you can get for maybe 100,000 or less. You put in there, you can slice the tomatoes, they dry, and then you mill. And that's your powder. And then when you need it, you can now take it and then you can form your puree. So these are just some examples. Now I'll take you to what we showed before about a post-harvest losses. It's huge in many parts of Africa and many parts of the world. This is an example in Kenya in which they used solar energy, which is of course free. So solar energy panel, and then they have this house where they have a lot of the produce, and the solar energy is used to put some heat in the system. So by so doing, you keep it dry, because one of the important things about avoiding spoilage is to make sure that it's as dry as possible, and this would discourage any microbial growth, because the reason why things spoil is because you expose them to microbial growth. Microbes like water, and if there's no water, they will not grow. This is another example in Mozambique. Again, Professor Njilah spoke about drought. So there are seasons. Climate change has made it, you really need to store a lot of in this case, a lot of the grains. So what they do is, you have a bamboo-made house, then you close the house with clay, and that keeps it in a very nice, cool state. Then, you store the grains in these houses, and it can stay for 4 or 5 months. And of course, you have some kind of, rat control systems within the system. So there are a lot of things that we can learn. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. There are things out there that we can use. And also, this is an opportunity for us to address what has been mentioned before, which is climate change. Again, spoilage. So what happens with spoilage? Now, there are a couple of things that you need to know about spoilage. Keep it dry. If it's dry, it will last for long. That's why, like in this case, powders last for longer than things that are wet. So, for example, your milk would not last as long as your corn flour, for example, because it's dry. Things that are acidic, like if you have acid, like fruits that have acid, they last for long. Why? Because microorganisms cannot grow in an acidic environment. That's why. That's why in some cases, for some things to last long, they add a bit of acid. Why? Because when you add a bit of acid, you take the pH below 7, and then it does not allow the microbes to grow. And then refrigeration is very, very important. It's really, really important. If you keep something in a fridge or you keep it in, below 0 degrees, there's a big difference. You really want to inhibit the growth of microorganisms. So again, branding. I've said that twice. Why? Because it's not about Mbum is linked to corn. Mbum is linked to sha, but we have not yet sold ourselves enough. This is an example of sha that has been bottled. I think the person is from Oku. And I think what this means is that we can do it. You don't need the machines to do it. We've been cooking sha for ages. So that's what you have on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have a brother of ours who is based in Germany. He does a roast and ground, and he calls it Ayangsi. And this is the kind of thing that we should do. It's all about, we should be proud of what is ours. We should transform it, and we should sell it to the world. And that goes along with our Mbum, our culture. So you can see our brother there. He's based in Dresden. This is one of his products, Ayangsi. So this is kind of a roast and ground. Now, going back to what I said before about branding and our names, think about it. Nintendo, our children come, they say, oh, we want to play Nintendo. It's a Japanese product. It means live locked to heaven. So Nintendo is a Japanese product. It's made in Japan. It's a Japanese product, and they use their names. So why don't we also use our names for our products? It's part of the package. Volvo, for example. Volvo is a product of Sweden. It means I roll. Why don't we use our language for our products? Mazda, the same thing. So again, it's a whole learning process, but I think the time is now. So in summary, I want to just say that there is a lot of opportunity in Mbumland for us to be able to add value. And this would mean that it will give more income to our communities. We should not bag corn and sell to people who take and produce beer. No, we should take the corn and add value and package and put our identity on the products. We should own our brands. We should understand the whole game of how brands work. Think about the market. Where do our products go to? And of course, it's really important that we develop our cooperatives and think about how we sales and distribution. That's very important, because if you, in the end, if you have a nice farm, you get enough product, you process, you package. We don't want to be storage. We would like to put the products on the shelf so that the whole world can see who we are, and then we can also alleviate poverty and give income to our people at home. So I think I've come to the end. Sorry, it was a bit a different approach, but thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Wow, that was quite intense, Dr. Luanga. There's no need to say it was long, because you could go on and on and on. This is so much value added to my life this afternoon. I don't know about others, but I mean, this is crazy. Thank you so much. And I was just wondering how much potential we've got, both human, economic, and everything. But we go hungry and we live in abject destitution back home. And like you rightly say, the time to start is now. So guys, we've had a big chunk for the first session, and why not shake it up as I hand over to our brother Njilah to bring forward to us the music interlude.